Good morning. The Charter Review Committee is going to come to order on Thursday, December the 7th at 9 a.m. and we're in the Public Works Building. Tammy, can you call roll, please?
Ms. Ward?
Here.
Ms. Jenkins?
Here.
Mr. Schmigelski?
Here.
Mr. Cox?
Here.
Ms. Logan?
Here.
Mr. Elzey is absent today.
Thank you, Tammy. Has everybody reviewed the minutes from the November 8th meeting and the November 9th committee workshop?
Yes.
Any changes or suggestions or additions? Can I get a motion for them to be approved?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
And a second?
Second.
Approved. All right. So old business, I don't think we really have too much old business, but we definitely have a few issues, or not issues, a few things that came up at the council meeting to review.
You did a good job, Jennifer.
Yes, you did.
You did.
Thank you. I tried to just stay back and answer questions as needed, but thank you for that. I appreciate that. Let's see here. So we had a couple of different term limits was one of the things that was brought up. I'm trying to read my handwriting. Talking about condensing the city attorney's information within the charter. I don't think we need to be as succinct as we did on the clerk, but that's just my opinion. And it's the height restrictions. That also was what came up at the very end of the last meeting. That was brought forward to us by our our city administrator, Chris. And then making sure we put things out on social media ahead of time, I guess, is the other thing. So, did I miss anything? Term limits, height restrictions, condensing the city attorney. Was there something else? I feel like there was four.
You mean city administrator?
I mean, city administrator, I'm sorry, city
administrator.
administrator.
They ask, and I don't know how the committee feels about it, but they ask if we had considered term limits, right, at the council?
Yes.
meeting?
Right,
Yes.
right.
And
We didn't.
we discussed it, but we didn't discuss actually making it one of our
We
referendum.
did?
We did.
We did,
Okay,
early on.
sorry, thanks guys, brain dead there, so,
Yeah, in fact, at length,
We did.
okay. Maybe I was the meeting and I was at home listening and didn't.
It was over the summer. It was early on.
Okay, refresh our memories on what did we decide? Because this part of the week can't remember.
well, go ahead, Quinn. I mean, I think you remember probably as well as any of us.
It was just general discussion in a town this size. Do we want 2 years and 4 years? And then we kind of tabled it. We said we'd go back and kind of talk with our
Okay.
neighbors,
Okay.
She's
etc.
talking about
Length of term.
length of term.
We're
but
talking
she's
about term limits.
I'm sorry. I
How many
misunderstood.
times? Yeah,
Yes.
I did too. When I was in the city meeting, the council meeting, I did the same thing. I was like, well, we had a really heartfelt discussion about
Yes,
this.
yes.
But no, we did have, as part of the whole 2-year versus 4-year term, we did have a discussion about term limits.
Must have been brief then.
And it was not really, it really was. It was like, if you're a 2-year term, do you want to put 3, 4, I mean,
Okay.
it was a brief discussion tied into the 2-year versus 4-year terms. And I remember Clint saying that St. Joe had voted to go to 4 years.
Then it didn't pass. I don't think.
I don't think it did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of in agreement with you guys. I think the 2 years is definitely workable, especially for the size we are. But the number of times they can be
Okay.
reelected, we didn't discuss.
And
And so
I
I
think
think
we
we
should.
definitely should have this discussion. So,
Yeah, yeah.
where do you stand? And then Lisa, I mean, where do you
Well-
stand on it?
I have often thought that there needed to be number of times that we needed a limit on it, and I was thinking about that the last couple of days. The problem is, let's say we have 1,000 people back in town, registered voters, 1,000. We don't have a pool of people that stretches over that 1,000 who are willing to run. And I've watched this for the length of time I've been here. people talk a lot, but they won't act. And so when it comes down to actually running, the number of people who are willing to do that is teeny tiny compared to the 1,000 we've got. So if we've got, all right, help me here with my math, 10% of 1,000 is 100, right? So 5% would be 50, right?
Right.
Okay, I would be willing to put money on the fact that there's not more than 50 people in the town at any election who's willing to run, actually willing to.
I think you're being very
I think
gracious.
I actually think I'm being very
1% would be
generous.
where I'm at.
So that's our problem. We don't have a big pool of people to run. But, hang on,
Okay,
because there's a
no.
great big but there. I think that we need to limit the number of terms any one person can run. And my thought was perhaps limit to 3 at a time, 2 year, 2 year, 2 year.
3
And then
consecutive.
that person has to sit out a minimum of 4 years before he or she can run again, which might give us the number of people we need to run. Do y'all follow me here?
I do, and in my thoughts on that, the only thing is we're growing. So our pool hopefully will get bigger. I mean, if we look at the next 4 to 6 years and the growth that's sitting on the edge of us, we may have more than that. So, but I totally agree. My thought process was also 3 with a break.
Along
And so-
with that, I think we also have to look at how long do you have to be a resident? The thing that you sent us, the very last thing from the city, I don't remember, it was not this one, Haverhill. They had, and most places have a minimum of 2 years before you can run. And I agree with that.
I do too.
Yeah, I think we
And that's
just,
what the current
we
charter
get,
says, I think.
No, it's
it's
1 year.
It's 1 year.
And we talked about that briefly when we hit that spot in the charter, but we stuck with it because it was not one of the most
bigger
important things
things,
to
yeah.
put on the docket. But I think people need to be here at minimum 2 years before they can run because
We
you
did
just
talk about that
need
briefly.
to learn that. So while, yes, I understand growth
Page
is
4.
coming and
Right.
we might have a larger pool of candidates, I still think we have to have term limits. I don't think that we should eliminate completely a person who has run and then has sat out for a set term and then wants to run again. I think we're too small to do that.
Okay. Tying into your comments and Jennifer's comments, let's go back to what we said about the 1,000 registered voters and look at this from a numbers game, if
Okay.
you will. Let's say we grow in the next 10 years. I think, let's just say we grow, and we're talking about full-time registered voters that live here. 50%? That's a lot of growth for full-time residents. I mean, it really is. Because a lot of what we see going on here is just more people build $1 million beach home and it's their part-time.
Yeah.
And so if we say we go to 1,500 and then we use a 2%, I think that's still a high number of people who would be willing to serve, because that's what it is. You can't really have a full-time job and serve as a council person.
No.
You basically have to be retired or be in business for yourself. So I guess where I'm going with this is the question that was brought up at council also was, we had 7 quote items on our referendum. Do we really think that going down this rabbit hole and taking it back to the council with another referendum item for this at this point makes sense.
Well, we can wrap it into this one. It could be, it could be one item, the 50% plus the 2 year to have to get in. It's all voter registration.
But if we did,
Voter,
Registration.
thank you.
yeah. But if we do that, then, and our city attorney's not here, the whole question, is he gonna be able to put that in, you know, if we tie all this in, is he gonna be able to explain it in the given number of words?
I guess I'm too much of a wordsmith if I can do it.
Which is what I think when it came up before, Clint advised us, remember, less is more when it comes to a referendum. So I think that's why we tabled it, if memory serves me.
And I also think that it deserves its own. I think that we would get false results because I think there would be a lot of people who would want, what is it, the 2 year versus 4 year term? Is that what we're bundling it with? I'm sorry, I'm not functioning here. I think that,
No, we're not, we ixnayed the 4 year term. The term,
yeah.
the length of term for 2 years, we kept it at 2 years.
Okay,
But it being 3 consecutive times that you could be elected term limits with a 4 year break, we did not add that. And I think that could easily be added in. Do you y'all not agree?
I don't think it could be easily added in. I think that, the people could very easily be divided on the first section and the second section, and how are they gonna vote? They want one and they don't want the other.
Jennifer,
And
can I interrupt for just a
Yes,
second? Clint is on the phone.
Oh,
We're gonna have to do this remotely.
I know, okay.
So I just have him on speaker so
Okay.
he can listen in.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think so.
I just want to apologize. I just got confused and thought the meeting was tonight. I'm sorry. What we needed to look at and what the most important thing, and I was working on putting everything together and getting you guys some options right now, getting ready for tonight, but, was what the city council wanted us to do was eliminate, 2.16, the review, taking that out. Reword the city administrator duties, meaning I think just cutting some stuff out and making it a little bit more generic. Kind of a la like we have the city clerk, but maybe not that generic. And then, the maximum building heights, we needed to actually flesh that out and determine whether we wanted to leave it in there for this time around or get rid of it and worry about it the next time around.
And term limits, which is the conversation we're having at the moment right now, Clint.
And term limits,
Term limits, yeah, but we're just about to the end of that discussion, so we can bring you up to speed. I think as of right now, we're kind of in agreement that we're not gonna push that envelope right now. We're gonna
just leave
keep it at,
well,
yeah, we wanna keep everything as it is, 2 year terms, length, 50% plus 1, and that was all. We were gonna leave it at that, and we're not gonna change the residential requirements right now or the term limits, correct? Am I correct in saying that, guys?
Well, here's what makes a city administrator job so hard, is that we only had one city council person say they wanted to revisit the term limits. We took that as a mandate from the whole board, when in fact, the board didn't vote, which is one.
They didn't.
That's right.
Correct.
Right.
Oh, they didn't. They
It's
didn't.
just one suggestion.
Okay.
they
They
didn't
didn't vote.
vote, they just gave us direction on which way to go.
Okay.
And I'm having a hard time off the top of my head remembering what they said about term limits, but I thought adding that in there might be a little bit too much.
Now, Linda just made it a suggestion. It was Linda Hamilton.
Right.
I made that suggestion.
Well, and there was another comment by Mr. Wolf that he questioned, given a town our size, why we need to consider runoff elections. And, you know, I feel pretty strongly, and I think most of the board here feels pretty strongly that a small town deserves the same electoral process as a $500,000 population municipality,
I agree with that statement.
and maybe even more so.
I agree with you.
So anyway, so then it seems to me that, and I don't want to speak for the group here, but it seems to me that our work today is really pretty simple then.
I think so too.
I think,
And that would be simply figuring out what the wording of the administrator is gonna be.
And the height.
and the building heights, I think we all feel pretty strongly that we don't want that to get pushed out 5 or 10 years down the road, given what's going on.
Yeah, I don't think we can afford to wait on that.
No. Has Mark provided you, has Mark provided you,
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
has Mark provided you then with some of the, information from some of the other cities in Florida that have incorporated the height restrictions?
He has, and I actually took the one that, how I wrote it up there, I took that out of, I think it was a Mount Dora. And then there was numerous other ones, I was gonna give examples for you guys, for tonight, that I thought the meeting was. But, you know, the main thing to be, the main question with regards to that is it gonna just apply to Mexico Beach as it currently sits? Or is it going to incorporate future annexations into it? And then other things like, you know, do we make exceptions for like cell towers and stuff like that?
Well,
We've already got cell towers that are taller than that.
yeah, we do.
But they're not on the
Well, yes, right out here.
Yeah.
one on the Harmon property, or right beside it.
Yeah.
Is the cell tower a building though?
No, it's a
It's a structure.
metal.
Okay.
Well, when like the way that I had it worded right now, as an affected intersection, no building or other structure, which would mean basically anything, shall be constructed, erected, situated, or located in the city of Mexico Beach, as its boundaries are currently located, as an affected intersection which exceeds the height set forth in the zoning district contained in the land development regulations as an effective date of this section.
And see, my problem with the way that's stated, and I wrote this to you, Clint, it does not encompass anything that comes in, anything that we annex. And therein lies a sticky problem, because I would love to see the height limit for anything that comes in, but then we're going to probably have massive pushback, say on the Harmon property. When that's developed, they're gonna wanna bring in
Hotels and,
hotels and heaven knows what, and those hotels are probably gonna go up to what Bay County allows, which is 23 stories. So they can get a water view. So do we restrict them, which I would love to do, but, you know, our commercial is 48 feet. And I think that we're gonna get a lot of pushback on that, but I think the people who live here certainly want to keep the height limit. And notice what I said, the people who live here want to keep the height limit. I think we need to afford some protection, but I'm not sure where we go from there. You know, Chris Hubbard was saying, do we want a tiered system? If you're a quarter mile back, you can go up how many feet? If you're a half mile back, you can go up X number of feet. I don't think that needs to be in the charter. I think that's getting way too...
that's more LDC.
Yeah, way too sticky. So how would we phrase that?
Well, that's an attorney question. How do we
Yeah.
phrase it?
I mean, if you want it, doing that step up stuff, I mean, that's gonna be complicated.
Yeah.
To keep it simple, I mean, you would just simply say that and it applies to any future annexed properties. Problem I have is like, for instance, Sugar Sands right now, Farmdale, which will be coming up in the next meeting. They did all of their zoning and building permits and platting and all that under Bay County.
Yeah.
And we actually have a provision in our LDR that if we annex something that's already gone through that whole process, we have to take it based on what those rules were that they got all their permitting and platting, which would be Bay County. So if someone took another route, like they did in those back sections, the Harlem property, whatever, we're gonna run into that problem.
Exactly.
Well, Clint, that's partly what we want to prevent, right? And like, I don't know all the ins and outs of what's going on with the negotiation for annexation for sewer and water, but they did that for a reason, and it's financial. You can bet your backside it's financial, and I don't think we need another
But do we wanna, if that's the case, and we have in our charter that they can't have any buildings higher than this, and I'm just setting this out there, we may lose, and our charter states that, we may lose the ability to be able to annex that property later in if they did it like that. That could cost the city a lot of revenue in terms of ad valorem tax and providing water and sewer and stuff, but that's, we're handcuffing ourselves in the future. But, I don't live in Mexico Beach, so, I know the people there want the height restrictions, and they probably would want it memorialized in the charter. It's just kind of hamstringing the city moving forward in terms of their options.
Won't our height restrictions kind of be dictated by the flight path at Tyndall Air Force Base?
I think they are.
Up to,
I think
yes.
there is something to be said for that. I don't know exactly what that height restriction is. Maybe Lisa knows.
Yeah, Tyndall is the one who actually set 48 feet years ago, but I don't know
How that
if that's
affects
gonna
back here.
cover the north part.
Right.
I don't think they fly that close to that for it to be a problem. It's just here along the beaches. So, yeah, everybody has to go through Tyndall right now to get their permission, and quite frankly, I don't know how Sugar Sands managed to get it. But I don't think it's gonna be much of a problem going north. So,
Yeah, so we definitely gonna have to lean on you then, Clint, to make sure that we have the height restrictions in there. How far back we go, I mean,
what about this? This is just a Hail Mary thing here. What if we said the height restriction is 48 feet for current, and anything that's annexed in the future must come to the voters to decide if they want it?
no, that's gonna be too much, yeah.
Darn.
Hail Mary.
I think to make this something that can be workable right now is you guys need to decide to simply, does this apply to future annexations?
Okay, we do have a public comment, so,
As it's written right now, it doesn't. It's just the way Mexico Beach sits right now. And I could put the wording in there that the way it sits now, and any future land annexed into the city, if that's what you guys want to do.
I think that may be what we need to do. Okay, hold on, we have a public comment, so just 1 second, go ahead.
The Air Force puts height restrictions not for flight, but for accidents. I grew up around Langley Air Force Base in Virginia. They had several accidents, and it's not only height, but it's also width. And as faster that these jets get, the wider the crash area becomes. That's the reason for your height. It's not because the planes are going to hit the buildings. That's not the problem. It's if there's an accident.
Got it.
Okay, thank you, John.
Virginia Beach, Oceana, which is where the airplanes that go on the aircraft carriers are stationed, they built too close. And those buildings had to be removed. And it was a housing development because it was just too close, and it was deemed dangerous for the public as well as for the Navy.
Okay.
So that's just one of the reasons that how they calculate what goes into it.
Do we have a source at Tyndall that we could reach out to?
My suggestion.
That could give us some direction with this? Does anybody? Okay.
Well, I'll be at the tree lighting tonight, maybe I can ask.
Okay.
I'm sure the city's got their contact person that they deal with.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
Do we want to what about the sentence that Clint brought up? It said, no building or other structure. Should we delete other structure to allow cell towers then?
The example that Tammy last sent us, I love the way it was written. It said, no structures within the city can be over 36 feet with the exceptions listed below, and they listed chimneys, steeples on churches, and elevator shafts. So we could have it phrased like that. Structures have to be whatever height, except chimneys, elevator shafts, church steeples, and cell
Communication
towers.
towers.
Communication towers, yeah. I mean, we could list it like that.
I think we could. I think that would encompass everything and work. Yeah. Clint, did you get that?
Hello?
Clint,
Yeah.
okay.
Did you hear what Lisa said?
It cut out at the last second.
You could,
Chimneys, steeples on churches, I don't really get the elevator shaft thing, and cell towers. Communication towers.
communication towers, yeah.
So just so I'm clear, Lisa, are we saying that we would stick to the 48 feet with those exceptions?
Yeah.
I'm just offering that as an
I
example.
think that's a great idea.
I think that's a real, yes, and I agree with that.
And it's simple.
Yeah,
Anything over that's gotta go to planning and zoning for variance.
exactly.
Request.
Exactly. I think that would be perfect.
And we know of
If they
what,
put it in the charter, there is none no going in front of it.
Oh, that's,
For a variance.
That's true, that's true.
Oh, boy.
Go in
Yeah,
front of the voters and do this again.
yeah. True.
What we put in here is going to be what it is. And the city council's not gonna have any room to move.
well, let's just ask ourselves this question. How much area, and obviously being on P and Z, there, Mr. Hubbard gave us all a map of the property north of town that St. Joe owns, and it's 1,200 and something acres. And we all know that some of that is swamp, but nothing has stopped them from filling in swamp before. So, assuming that that's kind of the max that we could expand, is that 1,200 acres north, because really, gosh, I don't think there's anybody living in Mexico Beach that would be alive for it to ever expand beyond that. So, do we really want to go that way and try to block anything that were to go on in St. Joe 50 years, their property 20, 30, 40 years from now? That, the voters then could decide on that, or do we just want to keep it Mexico Beach property?
In my opinion, I think we should think about the next 5 years. Because
I think we need, yeah.
this should be reviewed every 5 years, so we need to think about it as that, what would we like to see in place for the next 5 years? I don't think we need to think that far out, again, my opinion.
That's kind of where I'm going, Jennifer, is do we believe 5 years from now, based on what's going on right now, do we think in 5 years that the Back Beach Road will be completed in 5 years? Probably not.
Well, I don't think so.
It's sort of like Sweetwater. That development discussion's been going on for 20, in one form or the other.
I've been hearing about the bypass around Tyndall since I moved here, and from what I've heard, people were talking about it for 20 years before I moved here.
So we can do the height restrictions, with the exceptions that Lisa's talked about, because we're talking about what we will currently have now, and any future annexation, the way it's stated, I think covers what we want to do if we're thinking about the next 5 years.
Exactly. So, Clint, if we simply put it in there and then the city annexes more area, the charter would apply to that new annexed area, correct?
What we
Yes.
put in the charter, it would.
Yeah.
So we don't need to be specific and say future annexation because it's gonna happen by default.
Well, the way he's got it worded right now, it's just the current city limits, so he'll have to add that phrase.
Yeah, we wanted to add it.
Right now, and you'd have to go back, you'd have to change the charter in order to, in Mexico Beach as the boundaries are right now, to change any of that. If you annexed it in, the way the wording is,
Then
you
there's
know,
no
you could
restriction.
just, whatever zoning criteria that you've annexed the property in.
And also, if they had gone through Bay County and then got their permission to build higher and then wanted to be annexed, what we said would not apply.
If we annexed them in after they've already gone through all that
Yeah,
process.
yeah. Which is, I guarantee you, which is what they will do. So I'm for saying future annexations fall under it. And if they want to change it, then they can come back and change the charter. But I think we need to have that protection because what's being built back there is not dependent entirely on that Back Beach Road. It is not. There are negotiations going on already for other things to come in. And while that road is important, and I think it will be here probably within the next 15 years, they can build a whole lot of stuff before that road goes in. And it will all go under Bay County's regulations. But they're gonna come to us and ask us for water and sewer because we're the only provider. So we're gonna have to make the determination at that point. Do we give them water and sewer and let them come in under that or not? And I think we need the protection for the next 5 to 10 years right now. And then they can come do just like we're doing here, change the charter. I'm for putting the protection in.
This isn't an easy issue. It's not, but
Well-
that's the question. Future annexation included or not?
I say yes.
So I'm gonna play devil's advocate because we've all done a lot of work and put a lot of thought into this and what does the group feel the council's gonna do? Because they can strike it.
Sure
You
they
know, the council as it's currently constituted, do we think they would support this idea? Because for us to get it on the ballot, it's gotta get past them.
Sure, sure. I think it's 50-50.
I think it's important. I mean, I think it's an important issue. I want it on the ballot, but, you know, I'm just asking, you know, we got some smart people around me here. I want their opinions. Do we think,
Now,
Well, you don't want a charter to tie your hands for future because as much as there's negotiations going on, we have no idea what's actually gonna happen.
right?
So,
Yeah, and this would be tying hands for the future.
right. And
You can't
changing
get
the
out
charter is
of
not
the
easy.
council's hands.
So I would prefer that we leave it the current city limits and not touch the future at this point.
I think it's important we ask Tyndall. I think that protects us too and gives us more facts. I'm with Lisa. I think it's 50-50 at the table if the council will approve it or strike it.
We could always put it in and let them debate it and let them know that, you know, it was a split decision, it wasn't unanimous, you know, from our committee.
I could write it up both ways.
Right, these are just proposals.
exactly.
I could
I
write
say
it
go
up
for
both
it.
ways and see what the council says.
No, don't write it both ways. Just do it the one way and put the restrictions in for the future and let's just see what happens. I mean, that's what we've done with a couple other things.
I kind of agree with Quinn though, because I'm gonna say Quinn sometimes, Quinn,
It's not easy.
because, you know, I mean, we don't have all the information that we really need to make a great decision.
No.
I think we're okay, we're in a good direction, but we can't make a great decision because we really need to know what Tyndall's input could be and restrictions might be, because I feel like they could really guide us one way or another. And so,
and the other thing is, you know, my plan is to have all the ordinances, everything written up for this next meeting, but not for first reading, just for them to decide what they want to do and make any tweaks to it. And that first meeting in January, with whatever ones the council wants to go with, we're having the first reading, and the second meeting we have the adoption and we submit it. So we're just running out of time.
so do we want to put this forward, or do we want to table it until we can, and it go for the next charter revision? The height range,
Which
I
would
mean,
be at least 5 years.
Personal opinion, and I'm going back to, as I'm looking at the map up there, I think we're better off to get some of what we want than all of what we want. And some of what we want gives us protection. Lisa's at every meeting that has anything to do with this city. And she knows that the land development regulations get changed arbitrarily, and most of the voting public knows nothing about it.
yeah.
And if you look at those little red areas up there that are commercially zoned now, the reason I think it's so important to change those, get our current boundaries locked in, is there's nothing to say that they can't rewrite some of the zoning and we can have taller buildings here now, if it's not in the
Who knows
chart.
who's going to be on the council?
Which leads,
After the next election,
Well,
come up in a few months.
Exactly.
and
With 2 new members.
And speaking to what Quinn was saying with Tyndall, if we at least lock it in the current, we know the current area of Mexico Beach is covered with Tyndall. We know it's okay. So we could at least have the current area added in, like Mel was saying as well, and then do the research. If we need to extend it out, then we could do that, or the next group of people could do that. Okay.
Because, let's be honest, there are no full-time residents outside the current boundaries of Mexico Beach now, other than out in the boonies. So they're not residents of our town. They're residents of Bay County.
So we could at least, you know, you got that commercial stuff. I don't necessarily know about the Tyndall, but you know, you get some new developer comes in and wants to put in a high rise, and they get a couple people on this council that are behind them. You know, at least we could lock in what you currently have.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, we have one person, we have a public comment. Go ahead.
To me, it boils down to what we want this town to be. Whoever it was, someone, I don't know, Mr. Parker, made this dedicated beach from 8th Street to the county line, had the foresight to keep it commercial from out of it. What you're talking about doing now is also going to take foresight. So what kind of town is Mexico Beach going to be? Are we going to be high rises, strip malls, stuff like that? Or is it still going to be the sleepy fishing village? That's something that has to be explained to the citizens that are going to be voting on this. And we have to think, like you said, 5 years, 10 years, hopefully I'm hearing 15 years. What's that going to be like, and what's that going to create down here? So it may sound like we're handicapping or handcuffing, however you want to describe it, but we're also looking to our future. Are we going to come seaside, where it's constant traffic? Or is it going to be residential, or is it going to be rentals like the Outer Banks? It's just miles and miles of rentals. So I think that's what this committee has to present to the council, and I pray to God the council keeps that in mind too.
and let me just throw one more monkey wrench into this. We are supposed to have the master development plan, which we got a grant to do, but I'm hounding the council to get that up and running. And the citizens will be the driving force in that master development plan. And that is exactly what John is talking about. It's what we want Mexico Beach to be down the road. And I'm talking years down the road. And the question is exactly what he said. People are going to have to decide, and I'm talking mostly the residents, because the residents are the ones driving this, because the residents are the ones most affected by this. What do we want to be? Do we want to remain the product that we are, which is what drew most of the residents here, which is the sleepy little beachside town? Or do we want to see all of the growth that we know will come if restrictions are lifted or not in place? So that's coming up, and we're colliding here. We're trying to figure out a way to do this, and yet we got another bunch of people who, all of the residents are supposed to do this, and when we get that master plan developed, then we have to go and revise the land development regulations to fit the new vision so that the LDR will back up this master comprehensive plan. So that's all coming up in the next 6-8 months of the new year. So I agree with all of y'all. We need to protect our current boundaries. We've got to do that. Because, yeah, we've seen what happens when you get a change every year in council. If y'all want to go just that way, I think we're hanging ourselves out to dry by not putting some kind of protection.
Well, I think we've come to the conclusion that we want to put the heights in, keep it at the current city limits, because we know that Tyndall has got us covered where we are now. Correct? Am I stating that properly? So keep it where it is, leave out the future annexation part of it at the moment, because what you're talking about, the development plan and the LDR changes that would come from that development plan are going to have to play off of what we decide and what the citizens vote on and approve come this charter. So I think at least putting the restrictions in for what the current boundaries of Mexico Beach, at least we got that protected for now, and not put the annexation in. That's just my.
Well, I guess, is this something we need to?
Do we need to put it to do I need to get a
and a vote?
motion and get a second for us to vote on it, to present this?
Yeah, I mean, you guys gotta make a decision.
Okay. There you have it. So I need a motion and a second, please.
Jennifer, I'm sorry, can you repeat what you want the motion to be?
I took for it to stand as the current city limits annexed in.
You
The
want to keep
the current
restriction for the
height
current city
restrictions would
limits.
stay in place.
Along with those exceptions, the chimneys, the steeples, the elevator shafts, cell towers.
Yes. Along with the following exceptions.
What would happen if we just removed the word current and just said city limits?
Keep your monkey wrenches in your pocket.
And then that goes all the future ones.
Well, wait a minute.
I think that could lead to a lot of confusion and lawsuits and everything else in the future. I mean, we need to be sustained on what we're saying here.
Yeah, we need to be succinct, for sure.
And it's gotta be easy to understand for people when they vote on it too.
I like the way Mel stated it earlier too.
Mel, would you mind repeating what you said?
Well, you don't want a charter to always tie your hands about what might happen in the future.
That's,
So if we at least protect what was currently got height limits and annexed in, then we're at least covering what we've got.
Not a lot, and no city commission can come in and change anything for what Mexico Beach is now.
Yeah.
So that's the motion you want, Jennifer?
I would like to see that as the motion. I'm not telling y'all what to do.
Okay.
I would like to see that as the motion, that we to protect our current city and the height restrictions we currently have in place, that we have our current city limits and what is within those stay as is, and covered, with the exception of the items that were mentioned.
I will make a motion that we add the height restrictions to apply to the city as boundaries are currently constructed, with the stipulations for church steeples, communication towers, and elevator shafts as needed.
I'll second.
Can I have a vote, please?
Okay. Ms. Logan,
Go to me last.
Ms. Jenkins,
Yes.
Mr. Cox,
Yes.
Ms. Ward,
Yes.
Mr. Shpigelsky,
Yes.
Ms. Logan,
It's okay to say that.
But I am for that. I just don't think it's
Enough.
enough. I guess yes.
I was hesitant too, Lisa, but
What-
I think what we're doing is
It was my
protecting what we
motion,
all
okay?
want
And
protected, so.
I'm a little on the fence too, but I think it's the right thing for right now.
Exactly. It's the right now and the next few years, at least we know.
Because what it does right now is protects us from a council seat or two changing and someone exerting political influence and getting something changed. So none of us know what the sunrise tomorrow brings, so.
That's for sure. All right. Height restrictions. All right.
Okay, so that's, we got it?
No, on that one, yes. That item, yes. The next item that was brought up, which honestly, I felt like we kind of needed to drill it down a little too, was the city administrator position into more of a paragraph form. I think we had a lot of details and a lot of information that we presented in that, which may or may not have been necessary. There are a lot of things I like about Haverhill's town administrator position. It's pretty succinct. There are some things that I would like to not have in our current city administration's responsibility, such as signing contracts or executing theirs says execute all contracts. I don't think that needs to be a city administrator's responsibility.
It should be the mayor, like it is now.
Right.
Submission of the annual budget, I think that they can submit it, obviously, but I think they need to work with a financial director when and if we get someone in place.
This is a lot shorter than what we put in there.
Exactly. What we presented obviously was everything that we would like to have, but this is more succinct. And I personally would like to have somebody in here that it has gone to school and has background or has extensive, experience and is working with a reputable agency that's accredited and has standards and things of that nature. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. And professional.
So is it your suggestion we take the Haverhill language and take out the execute all contracts
That was,
bit of it?
I believe so. That was everything.
Oh, I want to hear from Mel. since he's.
Yes, yes.
been there.
Been there a few times, so yes, for sure.
Well, we're under the time crunch, and there's a whole lot we want to do, but we can't because of that, and the length of the number of items on the docket already. The charter that we passed in Defeniak Springs about 2.5 years ago, it had a full page of individual duties that the manager had to perform. It had the same thing with the city clerk. It was a page of items. Same thing with the city finance director, a whole page of items they had to do. That was what they wanted, and that's how we did it. Because we are a growing community, it's very difficult to put in the charter what the job duties currently are, which is what we did.
Yeah.
So again, we're tying our hands to future council that this is how you have to do it. I think by adopting the Haverhill language with some changes is generic enough, yet specific enough to where we know what the duties of the administrator will be, but yet it's not going to be so detailed as to get lost in the weeds.
What would you suggest that we take out of this then?
The execute all contracts, that's what the chair brought up. And the sign all licenses issued by the town, that's normally a clerk thing,
Yeah.
but it's either way.
Is that what you do, Tammy?
I'm sorry.
Do you sign the licenses? Or just the city administrator right now?
I do.
Well, then we need to take that verbiage out as
Yeah.
well. Because we were already specifying the clerk in the charter too. So that dramatically reduces
I think it gives the public a little area where they can do a sigh of relief, because the two little items that we're taking out, the words following that says, and provide administrative services in support of the mayor and the town council. I think that lets the public know that the city administrator works for
the council.
the council and the mayor, not what he or she wants to
Take
do
out
on
the
their
word
own.
mayor.
Yeah, I think, I was just gonna say that, and in support of the town council.
Yes.
Take the mayor out.
Yeah,
With all due
But
respect.
but our mayor is also a council person.
So council
So
defines,
council, yes. They used to actually have, when they signed documents here in Mexico Beach, council member / mayor. You know, so they acknowledged that years ago.
see, and I've been a strong proponent that I feel it's vitally important that all five understand that they are equally responsible for oversight and operation of the city.
One vote.
And well, you know what, with that being said though, and I haven't said this too often, what happens when something does go wacky and we get major trouble going on and fingers in the pot and fingers get pointed? There is no, the buck stops here. That's my only thing that bothers me, is you're lumped into, I hate to bring up bad stuff, but you get lumped into the group, whether you had your finger in it or not.
Well,
And so,
I understand that, and personalities aside and politics aside.
right,
It's time that people start acting like grown-ups, in my view.
well,
And then the reason I've used
we
this.
can't put that in the charter.
I've used this before,
I mean, the
and
buck stops with the council, and it's 3 of them. No, and 3
Ah.
of them
You have to have some confidence in your voters that they put intelligent people in these seats.
Exactly.
That's true.
But the point I'm making is corporate America, there's dirty goes on there too, all the time, just like there is in government.
Well, yeah.
But the way publicly traded companies work is the shareholders elect the board. The board has a chair. They hire the chief executive to run the company, and the board has the oversight, the chairman. So it's
Part of the board of the oversight, and I get that. I mean, I totally get that
and if
analogy.
things go wrong and people can't work together, that's just a fundamental human communication issue.
Yeah.
And the more, before you run for an elected office, you ought to understand that Lisa and I personally may not like each other, but we got to work together. So we got to put our personalities outside the door when we come in here. And, you're elected to do what's right for the people you represent.
Right, you're not voting for a personality, it's a policy that you should be voting
Right.
for, and I totally get that. I do, so,
Well, some people vote on personalities, some people vote on policy.
yeah,
Right.
we know.
Well, one thing the mayor has that the rest of the council does not have is the power of the bully pulpit,
Right,
Yeah.
like the president of the United States has.
right.
So, thank you, Teddy Roosevelt, for bringing that up. When any person from the press wants to interview someone from the council, who's the first person they go to?
The
The
mayor.
mayor.
Exactly. So that's the bully pulpit the mayor has. If you leave the word mayor in this language, I can see where a future mayor is going to abuse that
Okay.
word and say that you got to do what I want you to do.
Okay,
Well, remember what we did in the beginning, when we made it a council administrator thing. So if you continue going in further things, singling the mayor out, I think that kind of contradicts what we did in the beginning.
yeah. Yeah, I get it, okay. I get it.
And the only other thing I would say is, remember that sentence that we currently have in there that we took from the personnel policies. However, no elected official shall instruct or direct any city employee in the performance of their daily job tasks, but shall act as the city administrator. Do we want that to be in there?
Yes, yes.
So the way it now stands, I think, taking the word, sign all licenses issued by the town, execute all contracts, and the word of the mayor. And we're okay with the rest of it?
In addition
And
to
what about
what,
the part where we have, where the city, that we currently have in there, about the city administrators, we'd like to have them live inside the corporate city limits, however, the city council can make an exception to that if they can respond within an hour, all that stuff.
I don't think that needs to be in the language personally.
I don't either.
Yeah, because if it's not in the language, then the council can do whatever they want at the time.
Yeah,
Yeah, to me, that's just taking up space on paper.
Right, and maybe overly qualified, and then you don't hire them because they don't live in town. I
Yeah.
don't think that's,
I mean, if we had a person, for instance, that was a full-time resident on St. George Island, you'd have a hard time getting here in an hour.
yeah.
And you want to discount that person, to me, that's just words we don't really need in there.
I've read this like 10 times.
You know,
Okay. Quinn, what the one sentence that,
Clint, do you have it in front of you? You just read it.
you just read it again, the sentence you just read, Clint.
yes. You want me to read it again?
Yes, please.
However, no elected official shall instruct or direct any city employee in the performance of a daily job task, but shall act through the city administrator.
Perfect.
The mayor, the mayor and city council members may make inquiry to the city administrator or appropriate department head regarding the status of a project or activity, but shall not individually direct or instruct any employee to take action.
So we just want the first sentence of that, correct, Quinn, or the whole thing?
But I have the whole thing in the way that we submitted it first, but
Yeah,
I mean,
Okay,
do whatever you want.
just making sure. All right, so I need a motion and a second, please, to adopt the wording from Haverhill's charter regarding the town administrator with the removal of the portions, sign all licenses issued by the town, execute all contracts, and then mayor and in that paragraph as well.
Can I make one thing?
And the addition of this, the information that was provided, however, ...
Should we appease one of the council members, Ms. Hamilton, who I know is gonna say something about this, just to add the word education. We're just saying they have to look into. You know, we're not binding them, just to, in the very beginning of the Haverfield.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Education, yes,
Yeah.
add the word
Yes.
education.
On the basis of.
Education, experience, expertise, and management ability, yes.
Should we add education?
Yes,
And we're not hamstringing them, we're just says that they need to look into it.
correct,
What is their education?
correct.
And did y'all say you wanted to remove the sentence that said the council would like the person to live in Mexico Beach, but has to live within a mile, an hour's drive?
We put that into the hamstring category, and so for the charter purposes, we are gonna keep it succinct with this. And let that be something that the hiring, the council would be able to decide.
So that language is in the job description of the,
That is true,
It
yes.
is, that is.
So it's,
It's,
okay, so you're leaving it in the job description, leaving it out of it, okay, all
Correct,
right, gotcha.
correct,
Gotcha.
correct.
Because I remember everything that I put in there was I just strictly took from ordinance 488.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Do we have any public comments?
The talk about the education and the experience, that's in the job description? That is not gonna be in the charter?
In the charter, we're leaving it vague, so the council could say that they want them to have a four-year degree in in a specific degree, or it can be open to any it allows the council to
Okay.
make that decision. And
So the council is doing the description?
Correct,
This committee is not?
correct. We're doing more of an overview
Right.
and giving them this is what it must kind of
Because I know-
work within the bounds of.
In the civilian world, when someone says education and then experience, you have to qualify the education first. And then if they're equal, then you go to experience. I think in this case, where we have Chris, it was, well, education counts as much, experience counts as much as education.
That needs to be left up to the current council
They
as
need to
as
clarify that, correct?
Right, correct, exactly.
And Jennifer, I think by adding that word, education, experience, expertise, and management ability, it's directing the council to say these things, it says these things are important
Right, exactly.
as you grade a candidate.
Right, someone could have all sorts of education, but not that much experience. So they could have not that much education, but they have years of experience. You know, you want to be able to weigh those things.
Right.
And they may have a business degree, but have been in city government before or in things that, we all know this, job skills transfer over from some jobs to
Right,
other
right.
jobs. And so, I think the whole picture needs to be considered, in my opinion, again. So adding that one word helps.
I agree.
All right, so do I have a motion?
I move that we adopt the City of Haverhill language about the town administrator by taking out the language that says sign all licenses issued by the town, execute all contracts, and the mayor. Also add education in the first paragraph, and also add the whereases that Clint so skillfully added in his dissertation.
However, ...
You mean that sentence?
Yes, please.
But just the first part, not, there's two sentences there. Just the first sentence?
The one that starts with however.
And just add that sentence in there.
Yes, please.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Tammy, can you call for a vote, please?
Okay, Ms. Ward,
Yes.
Ms. Jenkins,
Yes.
Mr. Schmigelski,
Yes.
Mr. Cox,
Yes.
Ms. Logan.
Yes.
All right. Just a quick overview so I know that we're all on the same page. You guys just voted to add the word education in front of experience in the first paragraph. Take out, sign all leases issued by the town, and execute all contracts. Take out the word mayor down there and just have city council. And add that one sentence, however, no elected official shall.
Yes.
Okay, I know what I gotta do.
And
Nope. Quinn?
and this is probably just a technicality, but we're not using the word town.
No, we're using city. Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
change that to city.
Okay,
Everywhere it says town, I'll change to city.
right, okay.
Because that would be confusing, just to have one section of the chart that says town,
Right.
and the rest of it says city.
Okay, all right. Were there any other things that the council brought up that we need to consider or discuss that you guys recall?
When it comes to the term limit, do we actually need to vote on that, or, I know we didn't really have enough support to really come to a vote.
Yes, well,
I don't think you need a vote on it, just if you guys decide you don't want to do that, you just not do it.
Okay.
I think we're okay.
All right, can I go over the whole thing, just one by one, so I know exactly what we're doing?
Yes, go ahead.
We're put the first one, maximum building height. I'm going to leave that just with kind of the way it's worded now, just Metro Beach city limits as it stands, and I'm gonna add in those exceptions that was mentioned. Other than that, it's the same. The next one, 2.01 general powers, we're just, leave it the way that it is, council administrator. The mayor one, we're gonna leave that just the way that it is. We're taking out that one sentence. We're gonna forget about the eliminating the charter review thing. That was what the council basically said to us. Is that how you guys remember it?
Yes.
Then we're to the city administrator. We just did all that. We're gonna leave in the city clerk just the way that it is. And we're going to leave the elections 5.05B. We're gonna change that so we have a runoff, 50% plus one.
Yeah, the city clerk is being left, the shorter condensed version that we submitted to them.
Yeah, the way
Okay.
that was already, the way
Okay.
we already did.
Okay, just making sure I heard you right.
And what did we decide on 2.16?
We're eliminating.
Right, we're just deleting it because it was repetitive,
Yeah.
right?
Okay,
All right, I think I got it.
anything
Main thing
else?
was the maximum building heights and the wording of administrator. We got that. And everything else was the same. Except for, we're not gonna mess with the review thing.
Thank you, Clint.
So that means, are we now down to 6? Is that true?
Yeah, that means we're
Six.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Okay. Okay. Is there anything else from anybody?
So what is our responsibility at this point? Do we now leave things in capable hands of our city attorney? Or do we need to attend the next council meeting in case there's questions?
It will be the January meeting that you'll be presenting all this, or are we going back to the council in
I'm having a
December?
discussion on, we gotta have a discussion on the meeting on Tuesday.
Okay,
Because they need to, and it's gonna be by handout. Because Tammy's gotta get the agenda out today, which I'm never gonna have it written up by today. But I wanna have all the proposed ordinances and everything to be able to submit them to them, not for a first reading, just for them to say, okay, yes, right, that's the way we want it, or we wanna tweak this, however it is, but we have to have the first reading of these ordinances at the first meeting in January. So we gotta discuss it next week.
Okay, so, those of us that can or want to attend next on Tuesday, because that's a morning meeting, I believe.
Yes.
You know, please attend. I'll put it on my calendar. I'll be in town, so.
I'll be there.
Okay. All right, so we'll be at the meeting. That way if there are any more questions, so.
And I will, of course, when I get this written up, send it to all of you.
Anything else? If we're good then, can I adjourn the meeting? Meeting adjourned. Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Clint.
Thank you, Clint.
Once again, I'm so sorry. I didn't make it.
You're forgiven.
Thank you, guys.
All right, bye.
Thank you.
Good job. Bye-bye.